Last season in this race in Tier 1, it was Ferrari versus Red Bull with Stenner versus Reese. And then also the Tier 2 running of this race as well, just last season, was also Red Bull versus Ferrari, Florian versus Hunted. And then last week it was Red Bull versus Ferrari as well, Cookie versus Scyther. It's a long history in this league we go through with Red Bull and Ferrari, but it won't stop just tonight. Welcome along, folks, for the Austrian Grand Prix, round number 11 of Season 10 in RPL. I'm your commentator, Ryan Searles, and RPL Titan Iron. Welcome along as well.
Oh, this should be a fun race. We have Austria on deck. Quite, probably the shortest track on the calendar and the fastest in regards to time-wise. As you mentioned, quite a lot of history between the Red Bulls and Ferraris over the course of multiple times at this track. Will we see a repeat of it, or are we going to see a new fight? Anything is likely to happen.
Last week in the race, it was Cookie and Scyther colliding on the last lap. Wavy bringing out the final safety car. Costed Cookie any chance of the win, so Cookie decided to help the teammate. Cookie and Scyther not happy with one another afterwards. Before we get into any headlines, standings, and anything else, Titan, Cookie and Scyther, they're really good friends. They've been racing together within the same voice chat for quite a few months within the season so far. The first 2 months, I would say. They had a small collision in Monaco, but apologized right after. But then Canada wasn't that easy for them to apologize or anything like that. They're really good friends, of course. Does this ruin anything with the friendship after their collision in Canada last week for the race lead and the win?
Eh, I mean, sometimes when they race, you're racing for a shot at a win. You're shot at decent points. These two are main title rivals. I, I mean, to be fair, I don't think it would affect their friendship in any way, but it will basically cause their friendly rivalry to add some additional layers, and and possibly see even more racing between the two and even more high intense fights between them. So long story short, if it'll affect their friendship, nah, but it will cause their rivalry to increase quite a bit.
And we love those rivalries. Championship standings right now. Let's go over it. Cookie is leading Scyther by 43 points. Reese Dainty 113 points back in the championship. An outlier for anyone to really get to Scyther and Cookie, but just make a note of it because, hey, you never know what could happen. It's almost halfway in the season too. We've got the Constructors' Championship, which has changed drastically, Titan. Red Bull now having a 101-point lead over McLaren when they were just tied about 4 weeks ago. Ferrari 163 back. Alfa Romeo last in the Constructors' Championship, only 2 points of their name this season. So some interesting headlines. Speaking of that, let's go over some of those headlines with drivers on loan or reserving tonight. By the way, other tiers. Congratulations to Owen on the Tier 2 championship yesterday and JTK on his first ever RPL win. Because of Owen being the champion for Tier 2, he's moving up to Tier 1 immediately and full-time for Aston Martin after he got the podium last week. One more thing as well. The winner last week and the podium results last week are confirmed. Reese, Owen, Cookie. Red Bull, Aston, Red Bull. So reserving spots, loan spots for tonight. Bourbons and McLaren. ATX. I don't even know how I'm going to try to say that. New member for Williams. Formula Cringe is back. I don't think he raced last week. Hunted on loan for Haas. Owen full-time in Aston. NRM KVS is racing for Haas tonight. Alistair made his return to RPL last week. He is in Alfa Romeo and the Ferrari Academy once again. And now we got a lap with Hunted on board, the driver who was trying to win the race here in Tier 2, but had a little collision with Florian. And probably glad to be back here at this circuit in a much more cleaner manner.
Yeah, it is interesting because last week, as he was mentioned last time he was here, Hunted, he had that brawl with Florian, and it was a very wild brawl. And the funny thing is that Hunted in a Ferrari Academy car, last time he was here having that battle with Florian, Hunted was in the, oh my goodness,
Ooh,
I
boy.
don't know if that Alpha Tauri got in the way of Hunted's lap.
Yeah.
Gets a little loose, and he has to abandon the lap after getting caught on that curb out of turn 7. And yeah, that really screwed him up just a bit.
No, I mean, by the way, we are aware that when Hunted did come here just 2 weeks ago for the Tier 2 race, yes, he did win on track and had a penalty. So, I mean, he's been here 2 times since the last Tier 1 race. I mean, we are aware of that. But,
Uh,
oh, was he not supposed to be
um,
out on track? What
okay.
happened?
Well, that was
Why-
weird because I
why'd he
just watched
retire?
on the onboard. He went into pit and then just cut across the grass and just clipped the pit wall on the pit lane side
Huh.
and just DNF'd himself.
Huh. All right. Well, Andrea will set the first time, though. That's good to know. 4-4. A McLaren got back to the podium here last season in this race with Lewis Piper. So we'll see if they can do it this time with either Andrea or Bourbon. They really desperately need it because since Scyther's left McLaren, it's not been the best of ways for them. Who do we have coming across the line? Luke Grange will start a lap. He's had some good history on the circuit, I believe. Luke Grange, Austria. 3 wins. Only 1 pole, though, to his name. 3 podiums as well, so all those 3 podiums came with the 3 wins. So Luke Grange for Alpine this time. Let's go on board with him heading to turn 3. Obviously, the new MotoGP line on the left side. It's much easier to get out of the way of people because of that. So use that to your advantage, drivers, if you're in the way of somebody or about to be. Turn 3, a little tricky to get on the power. Always a tricky corner. Heavy braking, DRS, mind games. And now turn 4, where the action happened in Tier 2. 2 seasons ago now, I should say, and then also last season for this race in Tier 1 with Stenner and Reese. A tricky section here to the middle part of the track, tightened with track limits, and easily this part can we make or break for sure.
Yeah, very so indeed. As TB came across the line, got a 4.1 for his time. Still on board with Luke as he makes his way through these last couple of corners, and he invalidates by going just a tiny bit wide out of turn 9. That is going to screw up his lap for not only this lap, but also the next one. It would have been a 4.7. Unfortunately, because of going wide out of penultimate corner, not only is the lap you were on done, but so is your next.
George Alp Williams for Ferrari now on a lap for Ferrari. Here he comes into sector 2, 16-2, heavy braking using a ton of curb right there, and puts it back on the power now. DRS applied, almost below halfway on that battery. That's how much you drain here around the circuit. Here's turn 4 he's approaching now. He had a car on his right side. That was a Merc. But turn 4 is where that action happened for Ferrari last season. Ferrari won this race last season with Stenner, his first ever RPL win. So here he comes into the double left, which can be tricky for a driver, 45-0. And this is exactly where you can lose the rear, track limits. Battling gets a little bit hairy there, but the last 2 corners we rarely ever see an overtake, and we could easily see a lot of track limit deletions as we already did.
Oh yeah, track limit deletions, track limit warnings, and penalties as George comes across the line, gets a smidge below a 4.3. Not bad for him. He's currently just about a 10th back behind TB, but not bad for him in the Ferrari. In regards to areas where you can get your track, you can get track limit warnings and penalty. Both the inner and outside of turn number 1 is a very notorious area. Most of it usually happens on the exit on the outside curb of turn number 1. Another area where you could possibly get yourself in trouble for track limit warnings and penalties. It is in turn number 5,
Oh,
which is where George on the track map is going through now. Turn 8 is another one. That inside curb is another area. And then turns 9 and 10 Those two are other areas. So there's basically 5 corners where you can easily find yourself in trouble with track limit warnings and penalties if you're not careful.
I was just gonna mention, and Miniko is invalidated. Hunted DNF'd because when he went into the pits, he went into AI, and the car had steered him left, and he had no time to react, already in the barrier. So Hunted basically crashed out of the session, but through no fault of his own, and the Alpine is giving Owen and the Aston a slipstream. That may have been Luke Grange, and it was Luke Grange. Owen now coming through turn number 3. Let's see how heavy he's going to go into turn 4. DRS applied. The ERS, though, not as drained as we saw in comparison to George, so was Owen missing something on the start of this lap? Who knows? We'll find out come the second sector and the end of the lap. We've got tons of drivers crossing the line, and based on the 4 drivers who came across already, looks like we could have a close qualifying session. Darius is 3rd. The McLaren of Bourbon is up there, and Cookie goes faster, 2.5 tenths ahead of the pack. Owen as well coming through the last sector now. He's got traffic in the AlphaTauri. The AlphaTauri gets out the way, but now the final 2 corners, which always gets hairy for everybody.
Yeah, Owen making his way through the final corner, nice and hugging it on that inside as he comes across the line. He puts it 6th fastest with that Aston, only 5 milliseconds off of Jack in that Alpine, but Owen, not bad. Not bad, but I mean, technically he is the slowest right now, but there is more cars coming on through. Let's see, who else is finishing a lap? Let's see, we got Alistar just about to come across the line now. And he's 8th fastest with a 5.7. Let's see.
What else we got?
Let's see. Reese is just starting a lap.
I'm on board with
Looks like Bourbon's next.
Because Cringe could be out of qualifying here based on how slow the AlphaTauri is. But their straight line speed may help them here. We'll find out. We still got 8 minutes to go. 45.6 for Cringe, so he's in that Alistair area. Bourbon is 9th fastest now after he had just set himself on the board. There's others still crossing the line, but Formula Cringe is heading to the final 2 corners right now. Easy to invalidate right here. You got to be careful of that inside curb. Cringe going wide, keeping it in the track limits, though, to some extent, because he backed off, so this will be a lap he will need to redo, or else he will be out. Miniko on a lap as well for Mercedes. He's got tons of traffic in the way here. Yellow flags all over that section. A Red Bull now is up in front of him. That Red Bull is either Reese completing a lap or coming in, but here comes Miniko, the final 2 corners, approaching his way now, hopping over the curb and keeping it valid. Reese comes across the line to go 3rd, while Miniko goes 2nd fastest, so the Mercedes are looking really strong here tonight.
Yeah, Mercedes currently sitting 2 and 3 right now, but that time from Miniko, 64 seconds flat. That's not a bad time right there, but yeah, about just a little over a 10th behind of Cookie. And I mean, we know with Cookie, he'll put himself he'll get much faster laps and much stronger times, that's for sure. Luke is near the end of his lap as he just passed an Aston. I believe that was Cam on an out lap, waiting for these guys to go through, but that's what I see in the map there. But Luke finally going to be able to get himself a lap on the board, and it's only 12th fastest, 5-0 for him.
Scyther is on a lap as well for Ferrari. He didn't race this race last season. We also have, I don't even know how I'm going to pronounce his name, the new Williams driver going 13th fastest. Scyther's going purple. Bourbon, by the way, went 3rd. He's sat on pole position here before. He did it last season. And in fact, of all the tracks he's got pole positions at, this one the most. Scyther going just a little too wide in that final corner over the curbing, but it would have been fastest if he completed the lap. Not a Cam.
I know what it is. That Williams, it's 8. I mean, it's because the X is there, but it's ATX Dami. That's what it is.
Dami, okay. Cookie goes faster then. So Scyther's lap would have not been fastest now that Cookie would have one-upped it. Cam is on a lap right now, and he's coming through the middle sector, 44.8. This is the track he made his first start at last season, but he was disqualified from the event after not filling up the sign-up form. Here comes Cam. The final 2 corners approaching his way now, using a lot of curbing, trying not to go over track limits. looks clean right there. Aston had a podium last week, but right now they'll be 7th fastest with Cam. Not a bad showing at all.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. But yeah, Cam currently 7th. Compared to his teammate Owen, the separation between the two Astons about a 10.5 between the two Astons. But I mean, literally, looking at this board, you could easily see from 5th all the way to 12th is separated by a little over 0.3 of a second. That's how close it is. So literally, once you get yourself into Q2, you have no clue if your time's going to be safe or not.
There's a lot of things to factor in. Owen is now out of the first sector and into turn number 4 now. Scyther, when he invalidated right there, he's invalidating his this and next lap, so that's why you saw when we went back on board with him that he had his next lap invalidated. So that's going to be the tricky thing, similar to Canada. If you invalidate, it's going to be this and the next lap. Owen is up by a 10.5, and considering that's how much he's up by, he would move up to 11th to almost the top 5 here. That's how much he has on his hands. He's got an Alfa Romeo in front. That is either De Chiller or Alistair. I think it's Alistair. Not too much dirty air, but won't matter anyway. Right behind George on the timing charts. Actually, in fact, same exact time.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong time there between George and Owen. Meanwhile, just catching on board with Scyther as he's just coming out of the final corner.
This is fast.
See what he's got for time, and
he was
a 3.7, not bad.
9,000.
Funny thing is that with the point after that, fancy some 7-Eleven.
Interesting. Well, I will say from Scyther's lap, only 9,000 is faster than what he had the first time when he would have had it valid. Andrea also 6th fastest. He was penalized for the incident with De Chiller last week that we didn't really catch on stream. But at least to get McLaren up there in the top 6, much, much needed.
Absolutely, and I'm just checking out some of the splits here.
Wow, that was close. Sorry, Luke and the Aston of Owen almost came to collision right there. Owen's going to the pit lane, luckily. So sorry to cut in. We're just on board with Luke now. Go ahead.
You're all good. But yeah, I was just checking out some of the sector splits between Cookie and Scyther. Only 0.06 of a second between the two of them in sector number 1. In sector number 2, they were virtually equal. But the main draw was sector number 3, where Cookie was over a 10th faster than Scyther.
Luke was facing elimination in this race last season in qualifying when it came to being in the Williams. So this is something he's used to around the circuit when he's not been in a top car. But considering he's in an Alpine right now, and right now 14th just above the bubble zone, this is not good for him, but he's only up by 0.3. So this isn't even not much better for Jack as well, who's 12th. Sitting on the risk of elimination, here is Luke Grange coming across the line now for Alpine. He will be 1 place better, and that may get him safe, but you just can't guarantee it because Dami's on... Oh, nice one, Luke. Dami's on an outlap on track. KVS is out on track. Alistair, Formula Cringe, they all still have times to improve on. Alistair through the first sector at 10th down. Formula Cringe is improving, and this may get him out of the bottom 5, but the question now becomes how much. He's got 2 more corners to negotiate. Purple through sector 2. This current lap gets him ahead of Alistair, but now he invalidated it, so it won't matter at all, and this could be this and next lap, meaning if we just see him cross the line now, that's it from him. He's eliminated.
Yeah, Formula Cringe, after sector number 2, he was over a 1/4 of a second ahead in sector number 2. So he could have seen himself out of that, well, technically the bottom 3, but unfortunately he is done. And Alistair, Alistair, he is also done, I believe, because he did a lap a little while ago, and he did get a little faster but unfortunately only had him and Cringe switch positions. So
Oh,
Alistar and Formula Cringe, that's it. They're done. So ATX Dami on debut in the Williams, he is good enough and should be safe through to Q2.
even though he just invalidated that lap 2 that he was finishing, would have been faster. Fair play to the only Williams driver tonight, the only AlphaTauri driver, Formula Cringe, out of qualifying. Let's see what NRM KVS is up to here, getting a slipstream from the Alfa Romeo of Alistair. NRM KVS is still going to try to improve anyway and show us some nice action here to NQ1. Let's see what the Haas driver can do. He won in Formula Endurance last week. First ever RPL win in any of the tiers. But this Haas is really looking decent because it's a 10th up on the timing charts. Gets him ahead of Jack Miles if he completes it, but doesn't matter anyway. He didn't even have to complete it. He was through safely, but he invalidated. So no worry for NRM KVS. Your Q2 lineup, though, is set, and we got 4 different teams in the top 4, so maybe a battle for pole position, maybe a battle to get into the top 5. I don't know, but it looks like a close qualifying session. The bottom 3, though, eliminated. Haunted, Cringe, Alistair, out.
Yeah, very unfortunate for Alistair to be out as well because he just came back to RPL literally last week, and for him to be out in that Alfa Romeo in Q1 is not fun. Hunted, a game AI being ridiculous to him. That is the reason for his done. And Cringe tried to improve, but invalidation wound up ending his time. Those are your 3 gone. And your top 3 going from Q1, top 3 for Q1, it's Cookie with a 3.6, Scyther in second with a 3.7, and Minico with a 4 flat.
Welcome to the top 3, Minico. It's been a bit. You got Bourbon, TB, Andrea, Reese, George, Owen, Cam running at the top 10. I think both Astons, again, continuing to be shocking in a good manner. As for a team that's not being really so well for them, and maybe it's Q1, they're just hiding the sandbags, Jack Miles and Luke Range in shambles, it looks like, in some capacity. Alistair, Cringe, Hunted, Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri, and Haas being eliminated. We've got the other Alpha, though, of the Chiller through, so Alfa Romeo continue to be the Alphas of the league, just not with Alistair for tonight. The Chiller beating a teammate in qualifying, though. That's a nice sight to see after his recent struggles. By the way, for those of you still wanting to tune in for future races of RPL, make sure you hit the follow button on Twitch. You've got YouTube as well to follow. Formula Endurance tomorrow is in Qatar. Tier 2 next week's in Portugal. And F1 next week is in Silverstone. And then after that's Hungary. And then we go to the halfway break for the final 13 remaining races this season. Lot to look forward to on our calendar. We still return to China. We still return to Portimao. We have a Brazil finale rather than Abu Dhabi. And we have cars going out on track for Q2. Any predictions, chat? Let us know. So, I know there's an AlphaTauri and a Williams driver joining from what I could tell. I don't know exactly who, but we should be getting a full grid come the race from what I'm seeing. Let's find out. Let's find out if we do end up getting a full grid. But Dami through into Q2 and on his debut. Congrats to him. That's nice to see. Owen through in his first full-time start in Tier 1 in quite a bit. NRM KVS for Haas, the reserve through. Alpine were not so great in that session, but they have lots of room to improve. I mean, they can take the sandbags off now and find out if they're really hiding any pace or if they're just that slow around here, Jack and Luke. A little bit of a surprise from them compared to how their car handled in France and Canada.
This will be quite interesting. This will be quite interesting to see what will happen here for Q2. We'll have to wait. We'll have to definitely wait and see on how the Alpines would do. But we're going on with our first lap. I am on board with the chiller right now.
So am
As
I.
he's making his way through turn number 1, gets up onto the throttle, up through the gears, up to 8th gear, heading into that heavy braking zone of turn number 3. Getting it nice and easy, and he does a really nice exit out of 3 into the immediate DRS zone number 2. Flies his way down, back up through the gears as he heads into another heavy braking zone, this time turn number 4. Nice and easy, getting back up onto the power, working his way up, now into the next corner, turn number 5, and I will cut it over to you to finish the lap.
45-1, so it's looking okay. But remember, this could be on used sets for most of these guys in qualifying. That's what they like to do on the start of their laps for Q2 and some for Q3. But the chiller is now coming through the final 2 corners where it's been tricky for a lot of guys, and it's tricky for Darius this time, who invalidates the lap time this and next lap. Then it's the McLaren across the line of Bourbon to complete the first lap, but he invalidated, so it's now going to rely on the other cars crossing the line, being Cookie 4-0, just 27,000 slower than Minico in Q1. Minico sets second fastest. Luke Grange goes third. The Ferrari of Scyther's next to go second. Alpine of Jack as well shows them that they're not hiding too much pace, but they were hiding a little bit earlier.
Yeah, well, I was on board when we were on board with the chiller. He went wide out of turn number 9, hence why his invalidation happened. Probably the same thing happened to Andrea as well, but not in the same fashion as that. As Reese goes fastest now with a 3.9. Very strong with him. Bear in mind, with last season, him and Stenner had an absolute war for the win. And even right to the end, we know Stenner wound up securing that win. We were wondering if he was gonna get penalized or if Reese was gonna get penalized. I could be wrong in the report. I think both of them got hit with a penalty.
Both. 44-9 in the middle sector from Cam. Andrea crossed the line. Not representative right there, but for Cam, this looks like it will be. First start in this race last season. I believe he was running well. He actually qualified well. This is where the Alfa Romeo supremacy started for him, but now it's Aston supremacy. This will be 6th fastest for him, just behind Jack Miles, and he's keeping himself very close there to Reese and Cookie on the top of the table. Red Bull 1-2 in qualifying right now. And speaking of that, with Reese, he won his 12th race last week in Canada, and he got his 33rd podium with the Red Bull team specifically. He's had more than just 33 podiums, but 33rd different podium with Red Bull. The most for a single team in RPL Tier 1. KVS 5th.
Yeah, KVS puts that Haas in the 5th place. That's the shining that we usually see from Haas over the last few weeks. Them pulling off surprises in qualifying. TB, if his lap counted, he would have gotten himself in. He would have been 7th fastest, just a couple milliseconds behind Jack. But unfortunately, he went wide out of the final corner. So his lap that he did was fried, and his next lap has also been done and dusted. I'm on board with Owen now as he gets through Sector 2. 45.3 for the Sector 2 time. Couple of tenths behind of Cam, who had a 44.9 in Sector 2 on his lap. But let's not have that deter Owen just a bit as he comes out of the final corner. Can he put some power down in Sector 3? That answer is yes, he can. He's 8th fastest and almost half a second behind his teammate.
Fastest in Sector 1, Cookie. Fastest in Sector 2 and 3, Reese. Good to know for the Red Bull boys. George has joined back after he lagged out, so that's why we don't see him on a lap. We don't really have anyone else on a lap right now at the current moment. We have a few people, about to get to the line on out laps currently. 10 people have completed laps. The bottom 5 made up of Bourbon, George, Dami, the Chiller, and TB. Some big names in that bottom 5 right now, and even still, I think in this session, based on the way we have it, we still could have some big names being eliminated later on.
Yeah, once some of these guys get their laps in, this is where, right at the end, this is where we're gonna see the pressure of the Q2 elimination will creep in for a lot of these guys. But like I said, we just have to wait until the rest of these guys finish their laps and get themselves onto the board to improve themselves. Like I said, we got 5 that have yet to get a lap in. 2 drivers that have yet to improve their laps because they've had some unfortunate moments in their timing. The Chiller, by the way, getting himself into Sector 2, almost puts in a mirror Sector 2 split to Cam.
Well, that was also similar to what I think the Chiller was doing prior, but now that he's in a bottom car at the back of the field, the Chiller has turned up the pace, and what can he cook? 6th fastest. He's right there with KVS as well, and from 4th all the way to 8th is just split by 4.5 hundredths.
Jeez.
Oh my lord, Dami as well, 16-2 in the first sector, just riding those curbs into turn 4, trying to find the traction and all the time that he can as he now heads toward 5 and 6 and the later stages of sector 2. He comes through now, 45-2, 3/10 slower than the Chiller in the middle sector. That should set him ahead of Owen, but right now, with the amount of people who've done laps, this would get him safe in. Let's find out by the final sector. 2 corners good to go. Let's see for the driver making his debut what he can do. Part of ATX, over the curbs, deleted lap time. That's it from him from the first lap that he tried. Now Minico on a lap as well. Who do we have on track? Cookie, I think maybe bettering his lap time, is he? Yes, he is. Here he comes across the line to go 3.6 now.
Damn, what a lap there. And with ATX Dami, had his lap not been invalidated, he had a 4.7, which would have put him 9th on the board. But unfortunately, after invalidating out the final corner, that time is gone, and he's going to have to try again. And Bourbon just did the same thing.
Andrea did too. Both McLarens could be facing elimination based on the fact that they've invalidated their lap times too many times. Dami invalidated a lap as well. TB's now on a lap going purple in the first sector. His laps that he did on the original lap that he backed off on were both a 10th better than Owen in the first sector, but he's going to need to be much better than Owen right now if he wants to get himself safely through on this run. Minico's 2nd fastest for Mercedes. He has his car perfectly planted to the track from what he's been saying, and tonight he might be looking at another top 4 finish.
Yeah, I mean, literally seeing all these times getting invalidated on here. I mean, literally, does everyone have in regards to qualifying track awareness, has everyone been taking the Chiller meds or something?
Clearly TB has it on the
goes
second run.
fastest with a 3.8.
Yeah, that's a really impressive lap. Mercedes here really didn't have the pace last season. They were there for 3rd and 4th, but they were a wild ways back behind Stenner and Reese. They were nowhere in qualifying either. Jack Miles, 6th for Alpine. That's a really impressive lap because that's equal with what Scyther had. I'm aware that most of these guys, though, were on used sets earlier on, so it could make a difference when we get to Q3, but still impressive nonetheless. And Owen doing decent times through Sector 2, up on the time. A little bit of lag on his end, actually. If you're seeing this on board right now, this is going to be a lap that gets him to improve, but I don't know if he gets above the top 10 at all, because right now he's the first guy out of qualifying. Owen across the line, he's 7th, but with how close that area is from, what, 5th to even 11th? I don't know if Owen will have to go again or not. He might.
Anything is highly possible, but yeah, I mean, that gap is just so small. And I mean, literally, even the guys that have those 4 3s, the 4 4s, they're not safe. I know that for a fact. Hell, I'm gonna be honest. And I'm probably gonna be stretching it here when I say it. I think Scyther and Jack, they're not safe either.
based on the way qualifying was last season, and let alone in Japan last season too, in Q3. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, some of these guys are in used sets, some of these guys are not. But what I can say, though, for shockers, is TB is a 10th and a half and more off of Cookie, but he was faster than Cookie in the first sector. KVS is now on a lap for Haas. Let's see if he can get through with this lap with 3 minutes to go. KVS achieved a first win in Formula Endurance last week, a podium a couple weeks ago in Miami, but now is going faster in the second sector. And it's a little bit of a stretch to get a Haas in a Q3, but considering he's up on the timing charts right now, he'll need a lot more time to get ahead of Owen. But still, even if it's not, oh, never mind, it's invalidated. I was just going to say, even if Owen is not getting eliminated, KVS needs to improve himself, though, to make sure he doesn't, but everybody's been invalidating. We'll go on board with Cam now. Luke Range, by the way.
You're going on board with Cam. I just noticed George's car is stuck.
Yes, you're right. And now he's going. Nope, he's not. We had the safety car out on track last season. Is George just being the downhill safety car? Like he's rolling downhill, like backwards a little bit? Like, I don't know.
Of course you had to remind about with the safety car. That was super funny last season.
Cam's up a 10th and a half right now, and he's going to be knocking the Chiller onto that bubble area in 10th place. 90 seconds to go. Cam flying into the last two corners. Here he comes. He's trying to find a ton of speed and sending it now. Here he comes. Fifth fastest. That's what sending it in the last sector did for him.
Wowee.
There is sixth as
Chiller
well.
Now, and wow, look at his time.
So no one's safe. Andrea up 3/10, but all that time he's gonna find that he didn't have prior was in the last sector. Checkered flag will be waving in about a minute time, but now Andrea's racing against time to not invalidate this time. Bourbon's second fastest. That knocks Owen to the bubble, and now Andrea goes up to 6th, knocking KVS and Owen out, and Jack and Scyther surely have to go out. Jack's not even out on track right now.
Well, there's not enough time left, so Jack just has to hope that KVS and Dami don't improve their laps. But you know what that means? If KVS and Dami do better, and something happens with Scyther, Scyther could be looking at elimination.
Owen is not back out on track, so he's out of qualifying. Jack Miles retires. KVS is up 82 thousandths. That's much better than what he had before the invalidation, but he needs to do what Cam did and absolutely send the thing into the final sector. Here he comes. Final two corners. It's all or nothing for NRM KVS. That last corner was a little up, but now to the line, through, into Q3. KVS for Haas has done it, and Jack Miles is out. Dami as well, not improving either, so he'll be out. Scyther, by the skin of his teeth, barely through. Ferrari, 10th and 15th.
Holy, wow. Yeah, both Alpines are done. The Aston of Owen is out, but his teammate goes through. But a couple big surprises. George being out because I guess the Reese internet bug has decided to hit him. Dami in his first, Dami unfortunately his debut ends in Q2. But two other big surprises, the Chiller and KVS both finding themselves in the top 10. And crazily enough, they both put in the same time, just like with Scyther and Jack. But given Scyther did his first, that's why Jack is out.
NRM KVS replicates what that person did for Haas last season, going 9th fastest and getting through in a queue number 3. Cookie, top of the table. Then it's Bourbon and TB. Minico, fourth. Reese running out the top 5. Both McLarens through, both Mercs through, both Red Bulls through. Then you have 1 Aston, 1 Alpha, 1 Haas, 1 Ferrari through. 3-6 at the top of the table. Last season's Q2 time set by Bourbon as well. And a Red Bull was a 3-8. Cam was third for Alfa Romeo last season, by the way. He's through this time for Aston. Better than his Alfa Romeo time. Bottom 5, though, it was a 4-1-9. Last season was a 4-6. But both Alpines, an Aston, a Williams, a Ferrari out. 2 Welshmen, Jack and George. Owen and Luke as well out. And Dami on debut out in qualifying session number 2. Q3 pole time set by Bourbon last season was a 3-5 over Stenner. And then Reese. It was a Red Bull, Ferrari, Red Bull. Considering where KVS is right now when he got into Q3, 9th. Haas qualified 9th last season. And Alpine qualified 8th. That was TB. And Alfa Romeo qualified 7th of Cam. And an Aston of Frenzy qualified 5th in that race last season. So just some interesting things considering the cars we have in the current session right now. Pole predictions in terms of our top 3 or pole prediction times. Get them in the chat right now. I'll do mine there.
I'm going to be taking my guess on what the pole time is going to be. I'm actually going to say that I think the pole time that we had last season is going to fall. But by how much? Well, last season's pole was a 3-5. I think we are probably going to see a 3-3. And I'm going to safely say who I think pole position will go to. Pole time 3-3 by Cookie.
Interesting. Well, I'm going to give my pole prediction stuff as well in the chat. Got Minico, got the Chiller, all racing to get their first laps in. Remember, invalidations were a big thing already in qualifying. Let's see what this ends up being. And Darius will be the first one to set us off. Titan, how about you take it away while I give my prediction?
Yeah, so here we go with the Chiller making his way through into turn number 1, gets onto the power. DRS already opened up as he's just flying his way down this straightaway as he heads to the heavy braking zone of turn number 3. Gets right back on the throttle, back on the power. Nice and easy exit out of 3, back in DRS. Now heading into the next heavy braking zone of turn number 4. There's a little bit of traffic ahead. That's Cam right there ahead. Hopefully it's not going to be in the way. No, he stays out of the way as the Chiller comes out of turn number 5 now to head to the second split. It is a 45-1 for him. Now heads into turn 7 and 8. Flying his way back to the gears. Now has to head to the penultimate couple of corners. Turns 9 and 10. Has to be careful and not invalidate. Keeps it nice and easy in turn 9. Does better in turn number 10. Very nice. Back on the power again. And he sets the benchmark 4-7.
3-9. Minico. Better than his Q1 time on that benchmark there. But you're obviously going to be getting better than your Q1 time because Scyther does the same. 3-5 top of the table there. That is pretty good for pole time right now, provisionally. Next across the line is Cam for an outlap. We've got the McLaren of Andrea crossing the line as well to try to set pole position. We got third place for him on the cards. Reese on a lap. Cookie about to start one. Here's Reese Dainty across the line to make it third fastest for him. We're now going to set our sights on Cam just completing the first sector. It was okay from him. And now we'll go on board with the driver who looks like he'll be taking pole position based on the way Q1 and Q2 has been. Cookie. We watch him now. Sector 1, he comes through. Turn 1. Easy place to invalidate there, too. Lots of curbing that he's using. Now, the little kink up here. Turn 2. Lots of DRS action. Lots of racing around this circuit you can use to battle it out. 15.9 through the first sector. That's quite a lot better than what we've been used to seeing, but turn 3 was really good on the braking and the traction. The Merc across the line, a TB to make it second fastest. That's impressive from him. We've also got turn 4 approaching Cookie's way now. The curbing. Little wide there. Not the best of turns that he could have done, but it's okay. It looks not too shabby. It's going to be him versus Scyther versus... for pole position right now. 44.3. He is flying. This Red Bull for Cookie is absolutely electric. He is now going tonight for what is going to be pole position number 12 to overtake Reese on the all-time pole list. Here comes Cookie past the final corner to the start-finish line. 3-3.
I called it. He put it on there with a 3-3, and I mean that lap was quite dominant. In Sector 1, he was ahead of Scyther by 0.02 of a second, but then extended it to 0.14 in Sector 2. And a crazy fun fact on Scyther's time that he set exactly the same time as Bourbon's pole last season.
Speaking of Bourbon and Cam both invalidated their initial laps. That is not good for them. But my top 5 pole, predictions, not looking really the best, I'd say, right now. Definitely, probably in order, really, but yeah. I mean, I've got Cookie on pole position, though. He's trying to go for another consecutive pole.
It's likely, but hey, your pole range is right dead in the middle.
Yeah. I think we could see a 3-2, depending on if Cookie or Reese or Scyther or TB or Minico or even Bourbon improve. Bourbon needs to go back out anyway because he invalidated the lap time, but find out if he actually does or not improve. We'll find out. Let's go over just a couple of things in the meantime, though. I mentioned before last week that Scyther had more podiums than Cookie, but because Scyther was not on podium last week, his podium streak came to an end, and he now has the same amount of podiums this season as Cookie, 8. Also, TB, Scyther, and Cookie have the most points finishes out of any drivers on our grid, 9 out of 10. TB's not finished worse than 11th. Scyther's missed a race. Cookie DNF'd one race. That was Imola. And, yeah. So, some interesting stuff on deck. With that being said, Mercedes continuing their point streak with 45 races in a row. Red Bull for 36. Cookie has now had 3 poles in a row, trying to go for a 4th now tonight. Dainty's had 5 consecutive podiums, still being on that streak since he's joined back Red Bull. We've also got Cam, who has 4 DNFs this season as well. Minico highest in the Drivers' Championship without penalty points. Williams the only team without penalty points, so nice little streak and stat for them that they have going. And, yeah, Aston got their first podium of the season last week with Owen, 5th different team on the podium. By the way, last season's winner, Stenner for Ferrari. Pit stop loss for tonight, 19 seconds for the drivers. ERS gain back, though, a quarter. 25% you gain back in the pit lane. That's a lot. So a lot to remember, a lot to conserve. And we said about Reese and Stenner, last season. Stenner got penalized for the incident in that corner that Andrea just went through. Also, that was on the last lap, whereas Reese got penalized for an incident there with Stenner, where I believe Reese cut across Stenner when that happened, or vice versa. So that's why both of them got penalized.
Yeah, he did. It was like a come across. It happened in turn 3 on the final lap, and then Stenner did something to him in the very next corner. That's why hence why both of them were penalized.
All right, well, we got final laps starting right now. NRM KVS is the first one for Haas. He had a really decent result here back in the Season 5 running of this race, and a lower fielded car as well. So let's see if he can replicate that. Once again, he's replicated a Q3 run to get here. Now he's got to actually show it. Here he comes through Sector 1, 16-2. There's a McLaren getting out of the way, and I think that McLaren of Bourbon's going to slipstream Andrea. We'll see what Andrea does, but enter MKVS on the run at turn 4 now. Got to keep it clean. Run on the curbs. He's going to do just that. Going to ride him. And now turn 4, complete for him. Turn 5 now approaching his way. And still much more to go. It's what, 10, 11 turns around the circuit? I can never keep up. I think it's 11. It's 10 turns around the circuit. He's now going through what is turn number 8. Purple through that sector. Where does this compare to De Chiller, Andrea, or even others up in front of that, Reese Dainty and Minico? Enter MKVS keeps it valid. He kept it within the white lines, and he is 5th fastest for Haas. Just one off of their best qualifying, which would have been tied. Andrea 3/10 up, trying to better Reese and KVS, and he looks to do just that. He could not do it, though, in the last sector because he backed off and recharged for another one. Cookie's on a final flying lap. We'll switch to him because he's 83 thousandths up. This is really good from the first sector, and your 3-3 time, Titan, you predicted, could become a 3-2, let alone a 3-1.
All right. Sorry about that. Anyway, so yeah, Cookie currently working his way through turn number 5 to head to the Sector 2 split. Nearly a 10th up in Sector 1. He is a 10th up in Sector 2. We're going to see a possible 3-1 coming into this. But can he do faster in the final couple of corners as he goes through turns 9, in through turn 10? Can he keep it in there? Yes, he can. Here he comes across the line. And wow, 3-1. Jesus.
4 consecutive pulls as of the current moment, and not pull number 12. Beating Reese Dainty. Scyther up by 2.5 tenths. The McLarens cross the line. The Mercedes cross the line. Next is the other McLaren. That is Bourbon. Or Andrea, I believe. Andrea is 4th fastest. The Aston of Cam starts a lap. The Red Bull of Reese Dainty's next. Reese Dainty goes 3rd fastest, but Scyther's trying to better Cookie's pull time, and Scyther could not do it. 77 thousandths off of him. So he just comes up shy of pole position right there. Scyther does. Reese Dainty could be going for a second one, but I doubt it. He's not. TB's on a lap. Andrea gonna slipstream Bourbon, I believe, getting out of the way. Minico needing to improve, and he does. 3rd fastest, best qualifying yet. Next, the Red Bull of Reese and Cookie. They backed off, though. TB's going through this sector split. A 10th up, and this could get him right near Minico. These Mercedes in qualifying have been extremely fast and shocking out of nowhere in a good matter. TB sending the final couple of corners. Currently sits 5th with a checkered flag waving, just barely in bounds, and now comes across the line. He will be 5th fastest. He did improve, but no places for him. Cam now across the line for Aston Martin. 4th fastest. What a nice surprise there from Cam. Andrea couldn't do it. Bourbon couldn't do it. Reese as well. Minico, Scyther, all on in laps while they watch Cookie take a 4th consecutive pole and a 12th all time, passing his teammate Reese Dainty. And now that will get him 5th all time. Red Bull gets pole number 84, the 10th this season.
Yeah, very much so indeed. And a good fair credit to Minico putting himself 3rd in that Mercedes. And some slight heartbreak at the bottom. Bourbon couldn't get a time because of invalidations. Had his lap counted where he invalidated, he would have been 4th fastest ahead of Cam by 1 millisecond. Bourbon had a 3.663. Unfortunately, he invalidated out of turn number 8, which killed off his chance to get a decent start. So he's gonna have to start in 10th. But Cookie and Scyther separated by just a smidge under 0.08 of a second, and then it shoots up to 0.4 between 1st and 3rd.
All I gotta say is I think we got a really good race on our hands no matter what. Here's the qualifying order. Cookie, Scyther, Minico, Cam, Reese. The top 5 being made of 4 drivers on the Americas side of the region. TB, Andrea, KVS, DeChiller, and Bourbon round out our top 10. Bourbon did not get to set a lap time. Zakaria in the lobby now. Here's the strategy for the race tonight, folks. We got mediums to hards being the likely one. Soft hards, hard softs as well. I do think there's a chance we see soft mediums, but a little less likely.
Yeah, anything's possible. And just another interesting fact. At the end of Q3 last season, 4 drivers finished with a qualifying time in the 3s. But for this one, we had practically double that. 7 drivers finished Q3 with a time in the 3s. Well, that's actually pretty impressive by these guys.
Interesting. So it looks like the strategy from what I'm seeing is going to be probably soft hard, medium hard, revert strategy, maybe soft mediums from what I could tell as well. A lot of drivers mixing things up. I'm watching Reese's stream, therefore we know when lights are going to be going out soon. Chat, now is the time to get any last minute predictions. There is 9 of you watching. Good to see you. 36 laps on deck. Red Bull looking to extend the constructor's lead. Cookie looking to extend the driver's lead. And then the European stretch, 25 seconds.
I do wonder where we're gonna see if we're gonna see a safety car in this race or maybe not. But it will be quite interesting. I know we won't
5 seconds.
We won't have one towards the end of the race because Wavy's not here.
Well, big DRS train last season in the race. The 5 lights are coming on now for the Austrian Grand Prix. Round number 11 is go. Off the line, Cookie gets off well, and Scyther there, having to get ahead of Minico, side by side with Cam now taking 3rd place there. Reese Dainty, a very bad start from him. He's fell all the way down to 13th. That's not good and unusual from the Red Bull driver. George lagging out, not good from him, but turn 3, excuse me, we go where the trouble has happened before. They all go throughout the field of the Aston of Owen, lagging and making contact with the Alpine there in the midfield. Reese only up to 12th now from being 14th just 2 moments ago. Andrea and KVS duke it out, but now Cookie with a big lead over Scyther now for turn 4 standards. Owen is spun. Owen has been spun round, and I think Formula Cringe picked up a little bit of that, but Owen the only one around.
Yeah, unfortunate for Owen having to deal with that lag problem, and George having to deal with disconnects, but Reese, a horrible start for him, and he lost a lot of spots, went down by 6 spots, and Cam taking advantage of and getting himself ahead of Minico into turn number 1. Very good run, very good move for him. As Cookie completes the first lap, he is leading the charge with Scyther behind, Cam's in 3rd, and Mercedes of Minico and TB following behind.
So what happened to Reese Dainty on the start, by the way, is he's now getting 10th place on Jack. He had a major screen freeze, and it set him from where he started all the way back to 14th on that start. And the big loser, Reese Dainty, the big winner, hunted. Now, Reese also got Jack, but now his next target is Bourbon up in front of that, while Jack still pressurizes him. TB losing out to Minico, but the top 4 have kind of broke away.
I wonder if it's possible Reese having that screen freeze could, I don't know if it is the case, but George did join back before the lights came on. Maybe George coming back maybe messed with it, or maybe Reese had a bit of a lag spike. I don't know, but DRS now going to be enabled as Cookie has cleared Scyther for DRS. Oh, we got trouble. That's Alistar out of the final corner.
That is not good for him and his RPL return. The first ever Tier 2 race. He was on the podium then, but now Reese is ducking out, making the move on Bourbon already. Here he goes. The DRS is powerful, especially for the Red Bull. Now, looking to make the move onto Chiller, but can't do it. George joined back for a second time. He's right there back in 16th, so he'll need to do a recovery drive for Ferrari. He's having tons of problems for tonight's event, but Reese, clear of Bourbon, back up to 9th, and already driving beautifully to try to get himself back where he started at least. I mean, it's the only way you can do so. Overtake cars.
Yeah, let's hope George can stay a little longer in the race this time, but I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate for him because he was hoping to do pretty good in the Ferrari, but just couldn't do it because of the lack of the disconnects and problems. Anyways, Scyther 2 seconds behind Cookie, and that lead is growing.
And Cam, also a really nice shock for Aston Martin. They're really showing tons of paces of Reese with Cam and Owen, a really superior lineup. Third right now for him. And Reese now into Chiller, his next
Reese
target.
making a move.
Yes, he is. Down the inside here at turn 3. Late in the brakes. Reese gives him the squeeze. The Chiller's still there as well. He's not backing off just yet, the Alfa Romeo driver. Around the outside, the Chiller's using all he can to try to keep with Reese, but you can't keep much longer with a Red Bull. That is so powerful on the straights. Reese threw up an 8th.
Yeah, the Chiller just did not want to give it up lightly. He tried to fight Reese back on the exit, but just couldn't get the speed back. And that DRS is pretty dang powerful, especially for the Red Bull car. As Reese is now up in the 8th. Now he's got KVS to hunt down to get himself into 7th. So Reese doing quite a bit of damage control and recovery after that big screen freeze at the start for him. But he's eyeballing 7th place right now. And I'm thinking he might go ahead and try to overtake KVS down into turn 3.
Cam also on the back of Scyther in DRS range, but no battery to spare. Does Cam go for the move here on Scyther? No, he doesn't. Reese goes on KVS, though, for 7th place. Reese gets that move done, and now sneaks a peek on Andrea. The Chiller had to go out wide to avoid KVS, and now Bourbon's going to take advantage. Darius going to use the battery to get back at him. Drag race down to turn number 4, while Reese on Andrea, up to 6 for Reese. A little bit of argy-bargy there in the braking zone, but Reese gets ahead. And George, by the way, is
Reese
back in the session because he is battling Owen. Sorry to cut in.
Yeah, good. Yeah, Reese got past Andrea to get himself into that 6th place. KVS, Detroit being distracted just a little bit by KVS, and Bourbon saw it, took advantage, and he's like, well, thank you very much. I will take advantage of that. And Bourbon up in 9th. And the Chiller could be looking at maybe getting himself knocked out of the points because he's got Jack right up behind.
Cam also threatening Scyther. 2nd place is about to become his if he just makes the move, but he doesn't. And Andrea is also on Reese. Can't make the move there. Massive DRS train in the process, so they all just stick it out.
Yeah, and we're seeing two sets of DRS trains here. We have Scyther all the way to TB, 2nd to 5th, and then Reese has a monstrous train starting with him, and the back end of it is Hunted. Meanwhile, way back at the back, looks like George has his connection stabilized and everything because he just passed Cringe to take 15th.
Yeah, he's just hoping for a safety car at this point, and so is Cringe because he's on a different strategy from the others. And Owen is there as well. He contended for a Tier 2 podium in Haas, but now an unusual place to make a move. Owen pulls off the unorthodox move on Formula Cringe right there. Nice little move there. With that being said, though, Owen also had the spin on lap 1. They're all looking for safety cars, while Cam is just looking for a move on Scyther. 2nd place is his. Alistair spins around in the background while Cam takes 2nd place.
Yeah, Cam was just buying and waiting his time to get it done, and he does so. Gets himself into 2nd place, and just a little bit behind that, Bourbon in the braking zone turn 3. Overtakes KVS to get himself into 8th place. Now McLaren are running together in 6th and 7th and 8th. And Andrea trying his best to stay. Ooh! My goodness, that was scary to watch. As I was on board with Bourbon, and Andrea nearly lost it coming out of turn number 6. That was very scary to watch. He is all over the place. He just can't seem to get it. Oh my goodness, he almost lost it again out of the final corner.
Formula Cringe just spun around. He's the cause of yellow flags. That's the 4th different cause of yellow flags in this race thus far, but now lap 8 underway, and Scyther already getting the move done on the left-hand side. He's going through with DRS, breezing past Cam, and now the two McLaren teammates swap. KVS wants in on the action, 3 wide for just a moment. KVS, dive bomb through on Andrea. Alistair with a 3-second.
Yeah, Andrea having some problems with that rear end, and he was so loose out of there.
Whoa!
Ooh, trying to send in a shot on KVS.
Andrea still sticking it in there. Not gonna get it done. Also, retirement from the race. Formula Cringe, he's the first one out and the only one. 6-second lead from Cookie to Scyther, and I really think if it weren't for the collision with Reese Stenner last season that caused some damage thrown on back on what, lap 2, lap 3 of this race, this is the kind of DRS train we would have saw form properly, and this is similar to what we saw in Tier 2 earlier in Season 11, earlier last season in Season 10, and speaking of Tier 2, Hunted got a penalty then, and he got a penalty now. Second one in this race, second place forming up once again. Reese down the inside.
Pretty dang close as
Late
Reese
lunge.
battling with TB.
Gets it done. That was a nice little move in the braking zone. Wow.
Have a look at Minico. Minico's looking to eyeball a move on Cam.
Oh.
Trying to get himself in the 3rd place. Very nice wheel-to-wheel brawling action between the two Mercedes Academy teammates. Still wheel-to-wheels to head to turn number 5, but Cam is not giving it up, and he maintains maintains and keeps 3rd place.
Yeah, I mean, Minico's just trying to get that first podium that he's never had, let alone that the Canadian nation in Tier 1 has never had in RPL. 6.9 the gap. Lap 10 in this race. And you're exactly right. I mean, you know, I think Minico's trying to get Cam to gather it all back up and just stay within sight there besides DRS, because I don't know if Minico's either impatient or just feeling that Cam is slowing them up of really getting anywhere here. But now, a race again to turn 3. Reese down the inside.
Ooh, Reese is eyeballing.
Minico around the outside of Cam to try to protect it. Yellow flags further back. That's Alistair again about to be lapped, but now still once again the battling brewing and continuing. George gets hunted, and now Cam and Minico swapping it around. Reese trying to get Cam. Reese down the inside, late on the brakes and right on the curb. Just so comfortable with that Red Bull to break that late. And now around the outside line, can he do it? Cam gonna send it in. Reese gonna keep it. DeChiller gets Andrea. Reese gets pinched to the gravel.
Ooh. That was wild.
And now TB around the outside will get Reese. Wow. And
Yeah,
still
Cam
and on
and
back.
Reese
Jack,
were just
Andrea,
drawn
DeChiller,
like
Luke,
hell out of
Domi.
there, but then that little shove off into the gravel trap, a little tiny bit of a shove off into the gravel trap, that perked the ears up on TB, and he's like, oh, I'll take advantage of that, thank you. He gets past Reese, and he gets ahead of Cam, as Minico trying to sneak a peek on Scyther to try to go for second. Both Mercedes drivers are eyeballing for good positions right now.
Two packs have two great racing actions happening here in the first and second sector. Race down to turn 4 as well. In the background, DeChiller and Andrea. The Alpines also taking advantage themselves as well. Jack and Luke up to the points, and DeChiller now gets 11th. It's all kicking off here on lap 11, and we're not even a third of the way in. Reese as well, back to 6th after that little brawl he had. Yellow flags for Alistair again, finally lapped in this race. And Reese on the back of Cam, making a lunge, maybe a move. No. Minico, by the way, 3rd place for him, highest he's been in a Tier 1 race. Alistair out in the pit lane.
Yeah, Alistair just was not having a good night, and unfortunately it's just all gone wrong for him. He is done as George just disconnects again. I may have probably jinxed him. But a few laps ago, I said I'm thinking maybe his connection stabilized, but I guess I was wrong. And George now at the back of the field.
Concertina!
Hello!
That was Cam, TB, and Reese just bouncing off one another at turn 3. Major stack up there. Now I think Reese, because of that, fell back and allowed Bourbon to get DRS. Jack and Luke did the Alpine switcheroo. But yeah, this has now become for second place because of that Concertina effect, all the way to 8th place instead of just 6th. That is what that can do to you. And since George has lagged out, got 15 cars all at each other's throats. Scyther going to the pits. Already. Did he get damage? Don't think so.
He started on the hard. He's the first of the hard tire drivers.
Huh.
So are the hards falling apart much faster?
Hard to mediums? This is a very unusual strategy, but now the 10-second gap for the lead is something we'll focus on, while TB is on the back of Minico and stays in right behind. This DRS train goes back to 10th now rather than just 8th like we were saying earlier. Lots to give, and here we go. Minico can't get overtaken by TB yet. No.
Well, this will be an interesting fight between Minico and TB.
Hunted and Owen.
TB is quite known to racing hard and having some decent fun, even when it comes to his own teammates. We'll have to wait. We'll have to see how these two will fare together. They're both on the same tire strategy. Yeah, I'm still finding it a little unusual with Scyther pitting now, pitting on that, and Luke just found himself into the penalty box.
And pitting is dummy as well. Yeah, hunted it again. And turn 3.
Up.
Here we go. TB and Minico. TB goes through.
Well, this is some good racing here. Is Reese sneaking a peek? Trying to sneak a peek on Cam to try to take 4th. He saw it. Looks like he does. He's going for it. Going for it. Out of 5. Now into 6. Cam fighting back. Part 2. But Cam couldn't finish it off in time. Couldn't finish it as Reese gets the head and up into 4th.
And he says, see you later, because fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. I'll just go on the outside once again and get the place for 4th place. Red Bull 1-4 now. By the way, next time George lags out, please invite him back. I don't think he's too happy about the fact that he's not getting a good amount of invites from people when he lags out. But that is, what, 5-6 times he's lagged out? Trouble for him with that, because he's 13th in this race. Yeah, Cam as well, and Reese once again. The two Merc teammates go at it. 2x2. Minico, TB, Reese, Cam. Reese has the door open for him too. Minico through for 2nd. Reese there as well. And Cam is not done yet either. Cam as well around the outside line, trying to make sure Reese does not make a move down the inside of the Mercedes. But Cam is still there as well once again. This battle has been just constant between these two. Just dueling it out. Cam on the inside line this time once again. Reese around the outside. Reese gonna try the cutback. Can't do it. Bourbon there, now to pounce too.
Well, I will say that these two, between Cam and Reese, this brawl is not over. Well, maybe it is for now, because Reese is going in.
Well, there you go. He's the first of those guys that stayed out after Scyther to pit. Luke as well is there to pit. The Chiller there to pit. And this is exactly where things will start to kick off between pit stops. Mediums, hards. Hards, mediums. Hards, softs maybe. Mediums, softs. We'll see what drivers do choose to do. Scyther, by the way, ahead of Reese by a long distance. Catch me if you can, as the game Scyther's going to be playing with Reese now.
Yeah,
and TB.
Can indeed.
DRSing Minico.
Some of these guys have gone their pits in as the Mercedes pair is switched up again. This time TB getting ahead of Minico. But despite these two having to do the switcheroo games, Cookie almost 13 seconds clear of second place right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have a record-setting gap by the end of this race because the amount of DRS chicken and the amount of battling we've had this race thus far. He just doesn't need a safety car. That's the thing he doesn't need because we saw what happened last week. And at this rate, he's just by himself. You think he can put the field half a lap down?
I think if I saw right, I think he put, I think the last lead lap car was, I think, 11th.
Yeah, I mean, he did a really good job in, what was it, Monaco by doing that. More guys into the pits and more overtaking. TB and Minico swap it once again with the two Mercs going at it, but Minico is the one out ahead. TB is now the one trailing. Cam's there as well, and it's all the Mercedes Academy cars getting really close to one another and just trying to protect themselves from being overtaken by Bourbon here while pit stops do continue. Out of the pits is the Chiller, I believe, or Jack, one of the two. Little race there between them two. There's battles up in front of that. There's battles all over. Battles galore.
So
And
what's the average pit stop loss at this track? 21 seconds.
19.
Man,
It just gets so close.
I know if Cookie winds up pitting, he's going to be at least 3 seconds ahead of Scyther.
Yeah, so Scyther's made the massive undercut work, but are those mediums going to go the rest of the way?
Well, don't forget, he is in a Ferrari, and Ferrari is the most notorious for horrible, horrible tire wear, so possibly Scyther may be stuck on a two-stop.
Cam is in, and obviously Reese is ahead, but Cam is only going to be barely ahead of Andrea right now. This is a really big race into turn 1 and turn 2 now. Cam farther behind Reese after that undercut. Minico and TB swap it into turn 4, but yeah, Cam has DRS cars behind him. Here's Luke making the move on the Academy teammate. Side by side. Oh, Luke down the inside and not going to give it up here. But now with the inside line once again to turn 4, does he keep it? He sits in behind Andrea. And does he make the move in the braking zone? No. But a massive DRS train after these pit stops from Cam on back. Reese got the undercut. Scyther, though, the massive undercut.
Yeah, well, don't forget, Scyther does have to deal with those tires. So I'm thinking he's probably gonna have to wind up pitting again later on in this race. I'm thinking inside this case, maybe he's gonna have to hope for a safety car to show up during this race. Meanwhile, I mean, Cam having to deal with that DRS train. He's got Andrea and Luke right behind. KVS in there too. Jack, the Chiller as well.
Fastest lap right now in this race goes to Cookie 5.3. Scyther has a 5.7. No one else in the 5s right now. DRS galore once again here into turn number 3. And Owen got Dami and continuing to race wheel to wheel this whole field, it seems like, with the amount of action on her hands. Here's Luke just trailing Andrea by a little bit, sitting in behind and then waiting to make the move. Does he do it here by turn 4? No, none of them do in this whole train. They sit in behind, they wait for the moves to be made, and they just continue to race it out and try to catch Reese, which is probably the race that they have for what might be the podium TB is in.
Yeah, so TB is going in, and I'm probably willing to bet that Minico will be going in on the next lap, which means Cookie will be all out on his own. I'm wondering when Bourbon, I'm thinking Bourbon, he's still stayed out, so maybe he's gonna either follow Minico or try to undercut Minico. Not sure what will happen there, but TB, he comes out in the middle of this DRS train, and he's going to be dealing with KVS, and he's going to try to make an overtake. Can he work it? Looks like he can.
Oh!
Maybe not. Ooh, a little tap between him and KVS, and KVS still maintaining, but not anymore, because here comes TB to get it done, and the leader is in.
Minico might be doing the same this lap as well, even though he's on hards. Probably can go the rest of the distance on the mediums now. Cookie on the softs with no surprise there. I knew that was coming. We got this battle, though.
Bourbon's staying out.
Oh, no, Minako's in. But, yeah, Bourbon's staying out, yes. And now let's see what the gap is with Scyther and Cookie. Now, this is going to be the really big race here as Cookie's exiting in the pit lane. Bourbon obviously staying out, but could be a blockage for Cookie and Scyther. Bourbon, is he in DRS? He barely is, so it won't matter. But Scyther, 2-point-something back, maybe. The race with Cam and them onwards. This is the battle for fourth and could become the podium if something happens with Reese, Scyther, and Cookie. Where Minako comes out, he's at the far end of this train, 12th place. And now, about to be 3 abreast to turn 3. TB. Oh, this is a big hole he's going in. It's not much of one, but it's a big hole for him. And now, KVS through, Luke through, Andrea got boxed in massively and almost overtaken by 4 cars. And now TB about to get 2 and 1. TB are on the outside. He was already overtaken by Luke, but got KVS and Andrea, picked them both off, and now the Chiller also on Minako as well, trying to get it too. Minako, though, really swarmed up and trying to get the places back, while TB, his teammate, is doing just that now.
Yeah, Minako was literally right smack dab behind TB, but before the two pit, and TB, I think if I'm looking at the gaps right, TB is about 1.2 seconds ahead of Minako. As Minako, by the way, just clears Andrea to get himself into 9th. TB clearing Luke to get in the 6th. And Scyther passing Bourbon to get back in 2nd place.
It's all kicking off, and now the race to turn 3 is also heating up. Luke Range on TB. Does he go for the move? 2X teammates, no. Further back, Jack Miles and Andrea go for the move, though. Jack Miles down the inside, sends it, goes through. But does Jack Miles stay ahead? He's ahead momentarily and about to be out of DRS soon. Minako also getting KVS, needing that to happen immediately, and he does just that.
Yeah, Minako gets it done, gets himself into 8th, but now he's back in basically DRS range with his teammate. But Minako has yet to get fully ahead. He has to get past Luke in order to stay behind his teammate. As Bourbon,
wow,
is in the pits now.
That looked like it was almost speeding too, but everybody has pitted in this race. Softs for Cookie could allow him to extend that gap on Scyther. Bourbon on mediums, and now Minako on Luke. Minako gets the pass done for what is 6th place, and the 2 Mercedes are back up ahead of the rest of the pack that they were behind. KVS and the points for Haas, much needed for them. Alpine double points right now, and further in the background, the Chiller and Andrea duking it out. Just all
Bourbon, because
no
he stayed out a bit later. He unfortunately is at the back of this field in 14th.
Yeah, he's going to do the same thing that Minako and TB did to claw their way back up and reclaim places. It's what they have to do. They have no other choice. Well, I will say Cam is keeping a consistent gap to Reese, though. 2.3 right there. That will likely be the battle for the podium, with TB and Minako catching up. We'll find out what happens there. Just 12 laps remaining in this race. A little bit more cloudier on the racetrack. No rain expected from what we know, but I will say, with the way things have kicked off so far, similar to last season, no safety cars, so nice driving from these guys. Minako through on TB. Yup, that switcheroo helped out massively, because that will get Minako into DRS just now.
And
Chiller and Andrea.
Was that he was just
little rear lock from Andrea. The Chiller was the cause of him on the curb right there. And safely through after these two collided last weekend. Owen and Dami, 12th place right there. Owen still after that lap 1 spin could be on for some points.
Well, Andrea and the Chiller, they both have a 3-second penalty on them.
Nice move.
Owen is looking at points at this moment.
Yes, he is. Nice move from the Chiller, by the way, on the outside of Andrea. We needed to see that from the Chiller after the weeks he's had. Bourbon and Dom, by the way, also racing it out. And the Chiller off the road. Contact!
Oh,
they've come together again! And Owen's been collected too! He had a bit of front wing come flying off that car. I don't see any damage, but he did clip Andrea spinning around. Cam also overtaken by both Mercedes now. Luke and KVS too.
I was on board with Andrea. Him and DeChiller were going side by side. DeChiller went a little wide out of 9. And then there was just the slightest tap between Andrea's left front and DeChiller's right rear in turn number 10. That's what sent Andrea spinning and further completely out of the points. It is super unfortunate for him. But because of that little incident there, Bourbon just got himself back into the points in 10th place. Owen is right behind him.
Reese Dainty, by the way, running in 3rd place, trying to hold on with Minico, TB, and Cam on the charge. Picked up a track limit warning there in Sector 2 on that previous lap. Andrea, 3-second time penalty, 4th one in this race to be a part of the penalty club. Since his full-time move to McLaren has not been the best from him. We're looking to see if it will be better, but now 4th place. TB through on Minico. Jack and Luke. Andrea's out in the pit lane. And Minico back through again. DRS swapping between the Mercedes drivers.
Yeah, these two are switching it up, and Minico, by the way, has been gaining on Reese. I think if my memory's right, a couple of laps ago, Minico was just over 3 seconds behind Reese. Now that gap has shrunk down to 1.3 seconds, and it's going as Scyther is in for a second stop.
That's a surprise. Why did he go for a 2-stop? Huh.
Well, like I said, he's in a Ferrari. Ferrari is the absolute worst in regards to tire wear.
No, I know,
So
but he started on hards, though, and he went on to mediums and then another set of mediums, and now he's outside the points. This strategy just makes no sense, but TB to the podium. Minico there as well. Cam challenging. KVS under threat from Jack. Jack through for the moment. KVS trying to get the power down to go back through. Minico on TB. It's just never ending. 3rd place is Minico now for what could be a first ever podium. 18 seconds the race lead right now.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that look at the Mercedes pair. They are now within DRS range of Reese.
Crucial.
And the funny thing is what the Mercedes pair don't know, they brought Cam with them too. So
well,
now Reese
yeah.
has to deal with 3 Mercedes Academy cars behind him.
And if something happens to them, Jack, Miles, KVS, Luke, Bourbon, that whole entire train gets invited to the mess too, and Bourbon is on the back of Luke, all over him. And now, making a peak there before turn 1 is Bourbon. Minico now for 2nd in this race. Here he comes. Threatening Reese on the outside with later braking. Bourbon gets Luke as well in the process. KVS and Jack, it's just never ending. But now for 2nd place, Reese trying to defend, but can't for much longer. Minico, the DRS, breezes past Reese for 2nd place. And Hunted is out in the pit lane, our 4th retirement. All of them coming in the pit lane, while Bourbon, Jack, KVS, another 3-car race. 3 cars under a blanket to turn number 4. Bourbon getting out ahead. Now Jack also on KVS around the outside line. KVS cuts him off, shuts the door. But Jack goes wide. Luke's there to pounce. Can't do it. Just insane, the racing right now. Scyther there in the back of this train for 10th. He's back in the points. Luke with a penalty.
And that's not good for Luke because this is his 2nd track limit penalty. He's up to 6 seconds of penalties. And unfortunately, that's going to knock him out of the points because it will put Scyther to 9th as Scyther gets past Luke to get himself into 9th. Luke falls to 10th, but because Owen's right behind, as TB clears Reese to get himself into 3rd place, but Reese looking to fight back. These two championship rivals in Season 8. They were teammates for a little bit at the start of Season 9, but Reese unfortunately has to fall to 4th, and it's literally a Mercedes 2-3 right now.
It's important to note that Cam's out of DRS now while Scyther's going down the inside and getting KVS with ease right there. And now it's his turn to get Bourbon. And he could be fighting on the back of this train for a podium late race. I have to say, some driver of the day contenders for myself. Cookie, Minico, Cam, maybe KVS. That's about it for me. The only guys I have in mind. But now Scyther already through on Bourbon.
Yeah, Scyther is just on a warpath right now. He's trying to
On a fucking tear.
limit the damage of that two-stop strategy that he has. And he is currently in 6th place, but he's got a
No!
long way to go to catch Cam. Cam's in the penalty box.
Oh, man. And now here comes TB, duking it out for 2nd place with Minico. Can't get the move done. They're now trying to hold off Reese Dainty. Reese Dainty and TB, the 2 most recent RPL champions, versus the guy who's never had a podium. 2nd place in the cards. TB's gonna get it. And through.
Mercedes pair, they're going to have to be careful not to get too greedy with their brawling, because it can open a door to Reese, because Reese does like playing the waiting game in regards to some of the guys brawling ahead, and most of the times when he plays the waiting game, something happens to the cars ahead, and he slips right by and takes advantage.
As far as I'm aware, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Cookie's had over a 14-second gap for a race victory in RPL. 20 seconds today. We've not given him a driver of the day yet. I think he's going to be one that should get the credit. Minico up there as well for one. Scyther on the reverse strategy makes no sense to me, but we'll see what happens. Cam ruining himself for driver of the day in my book with that penalty, but here comes Minico around the outside on TB. And now Reese gonna do a dummy down the inside, side by side between the 2 ex-teammates and rivals. TB staying out ahead, but Reese caught him napping. Jack Miles down the inside of KVS, going through and ahead. That DRS train still stays close 2nd to 4th, while 8th place is still up for grabs between Many, Jack, Luke, KVS, and Owen. Right there with that penalty, gonna pounce on Luke.
Yeah, it's quite pretty good right here, and literally the war for 2nd, it is not over, and it's only just as these guys come across the line. There's only going to be 5 laps to go. This could go anywhere. Yeah.
I must say, Josh has spoke about it, and I have to give him credit, even though he seems like he wants it. Credit to him for the Mercury Shuffle. Owen and Aston, Cam and Aston, Minico and TB and Mercedes, and they're now contending for another podium this season. TB now going to get it on Minico around the left side and gets through. Reese too far back to make the move with Minico, trying to take podium number 1. He's had a really good race thus far. Bourbon behind Scyther, still keeping him on his toes. KVS on Jack. Also, in the thick of things, Luke there as well, making an Alpine sandwich for KVS. While Minico holds on right now for P3. It's just heartbreak if he doesn't get this podium right now. I mean, he's just hoping for it at this point. After Be Good got kicked out of the Merc Academy, it was Minico's spot to take over now. And he was at the Merc Academy before this season anyway, when he started out in RPL in Williams, did some starts in Aston, did some starts in Mercedes, then went over to the Ferrari Academy for Haas, and got one chance for Ferrari in Australia. Qualified 4th for Haas in Baku, and then switched over to the Merc Academy again once the transfer window opened up, and Bourbon got a penalty again in this race. That's not good for 7th. While that was being spoken about Minico, I was just going to say how a little nice, you know, place back to home here for Mercedes, and it could be a first podium. Scyther gets Cam. Reese gets TB. 3 wide. Minico getting shoved to the curb. TB as well backed out of that and waited for that to happen to get the DRS there. But the thing is, though, Minico's the one left out to dry with no DRS. He's back down to 4th. Scyther got Cam and now will run after the podium runners. 2nd, 3rd, and 4th now.
Yeah, like I said, this war is just not over at all here. And by the way, a bit of a wild fact right now. Cookie ahead of Reese, 22.8 seconds. The last time an RPL race had an over 20-second margin of victory between 1st and 2nd. Well, you'll have to look all the way back to season. You'll have to look all the way back to season 7. Yeah, season 7
Baku?
in Baku,
Yep.
where Scyther beat Cryptic by 34 seconds.
TB gets Reese, and now Miniko has a chance to do so. He's in DRS pursuit. Can he do so by turn 3? Yes, he can. Down the inside. Don't tap your teammate, Miniko.
Baby.
You kept it really good, and he's kept it through on Reese. Nice little move there. Scyther also has Camp for Company still in DRS. The lap car of George, though, will help these guys pull away. But this is how big the gap is, though. These guys are coming to the end of the Sector 2 split here. Not going to hit it before Cookie hits the line here. 23 seconds almost. Cookie starts the penultimate lap.
If he manages to stay in it, TB could find himself getting DRS, because on board with TB, look who's ahead of him. The lapped, disconnected car of George.
DRS now. Online for TB. Rear wing open. Perfect scenario for him. While Scyther is closed up to DRS with just 2 laps remaining. The lap car gets out the way. Dami gets a penalty. 5th different driver with 14 runners left. We've lost 4, but we've not lost this DRS train. While Miniko makes the move down the inside again. He goes through for 2nd place, but now Reese looks to make the move too. Side by side between him and TB. Scyther's there in the background as well. Now TB chasing after Miniko. Around the outside, Miniko gonna keep him on his toes. Scyther there to pounce on Reese in contact. The Chiller with a penalty. Jack is well there with KVS on the slipstream down to turn number 4 now. I don't think Jack is close enough. He's not, but Cookie starts the final lap. Scyther all over the back of Reese.
Scyther's caught up to Reese. This brawl is not over.
4 cars in the equation with just a lap remaining. 10 more turns to go. And Cookie about to win a 9th race with tie TB all-time in the wins list. Red Bull also looking for win number 80 all-time in Tier 1. Final lap brawl continuing. Here's turn 3. The run where everything gets exciting. Here comes TB. TB throwing Miniko. Scyther on Reese. Miniko trying to protect for 3rd. Reese there battling Scyther for 4th to try to take it. Cookie to the final sector.
Bumping him.
Squirrely. Miniko trying to get it back. Can he do it? Is he close enough? No battery. Scyther there. Scyther down the inside. Contact. No! Miniko with more heartbreak. A podium gone again. But Cookie will get win number 9 and win number 80 for Red Bull, winning the Austrian Grand Prix by a massive margin, tying TB on the all-time win list with win number 9. TB now trying to claim 2nd. He's got a good sizable gap after Miniko got tagged by Scyther. And TB back to the podium for the first time since the start of the season. Merc with the reshuffle helped themselves out. Scyther on the podium for a 18th time out of the last 21 starts. Reese settles for 4th. Cam, Bourbon, and Miniko with more heartbreak. And Jack's out of fuel, I think. Or was.
You got to give the heart. That's a heartbreak moment for Miniko. He had a chance of a podium, but it went all awry. Scyther misjudged the braking just a bit in the turn number 4, and that resulted in the hit and spin. Oh my goodness, that was so unfortunate for Miniko, and he had to settle for 7th place. But I'm gonna say simply, I hate to say it, but Scyther, you're probably looking at a penalty there, my friend.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Podium celebration about to get underway, but with someone that could be getting kicked off the podium based on that. I think Scyther was trying to defend on Reese, and he just went too deep and clocked Miniko. I mean, I think Miniko might want to be crossing the border illegally after that one. Man. Well, Cookie celebrates while Miniko has heartbreak once again for what would have been a first podium. He did everything right. He's my, I would say, 2nd option for driver of the day, Miniko, but I'm giving it to Cookie. Biggest gap in 3 seasons. Easily. 3 different teams in the podium. Nicely done there, just like last season, but this time instead of a McLaren, it's a Mercedes. Also, by the way, shout out to Reese for a nice recovery. I mean, getting passed by Scyther after that strategy is a little, you know, unusual considering he's in a Red Bull, but nice two-stop as well from Scyther to at least get the podium, but it's going to probably cost him in the storage room later on. Here are your final results. Any final thoughts, Titan, as we go through them? KVS, nice 8th place, by the way.
I don't have any final words on that one, to be honest.
Minico, heartbreak, he settles for what's going to be 7th place there at the end. And Owen, by the way, recovering to the points. Nice job to him. Yeah, I feel bad for Minico.
Yeah,
I do.
Me too.
It's my second option there for driver of the day. I'm giving it to Cookie. Cookie's not had a driver of the day, I think, since he's, you know, been winning. He's got overshadowed by a lot of other stuff, but that big gap, yeah, I can't let that get overshadowed. Keep in mind, folks, Qatar tomorrow for Formula Endurance, Tier 2s in Portugal next week, and F1s in Britain to see if, well, if Minico can get another podium and Cookie can get another, well, another podium in a league, I should say, but first here, or another chance at one, really, and Cookie can get another win. What would be win number 10 next week if he does it, would tie Portley and Maxwell for 5th all time. But Red Bull take win number 80 in Tier 1, while Cookie takes win number 8 of the season and win number 9 all time, tying TB. It's quite a milestone. Well, any final thoughts, Titan? Any driver of the day thoughts as well?
I mean, when my driver to Detroit's hat, I mean, to be fair, had he not been bumped and tagged by Scyther, Minico was a shoo-in for that. I mean, heck, before that collision, Scyther was also a possible contender because he made it. He
Agreed.
wound up taking a chance with a 2-stop, was looking to fight for a podium. But given those circumstances that happened on that final lap, I'm probably gonna go with your choice with Cookie with that 20-second win, the first time in 4 seasons that we've seen an over 20-second margin of victory.
I think that's also the first time it's happened in this game cycle, let alone, because Hunted had a big gap in Hungary Tier 2 with 17 seconds. But I don't think we've seen a margin that big in RPL this game cycle yet. So fair play to the drivers for keeping it clean today. No safety cars, probably going to be minimal tickets again, or clips submitted. I'm used to leagues doing ticket submissions, but, you know, whatever. Either way, we have some racing to continue this weekend. One more tomorrow, 2 Eastern, 7 UK. We've got Formula Endurance at Qatar. And then Tier 2 is at Portugal for the penultimate round of the season. Whereas Britain for F1 next week to continue the action. And more of the European stretch to come. Hungary, Belgium. So much more for RPL Tier 1. Cookie, can he be stopped? What's going to stop him? What's going to get Minico that first podium? Find out next week for RPL Tier 1, let alone tomorrow for Formula Endurance and Qatar. We'll see you then, folks. Until next time, have a good night.